John Galligan, John-Galligan.
And official title?
Retired Colonel, Defense Attorney.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about where we are as far as this process.
The process? We're still at the very early stages of the process. Even though we're 6 months into a period of basic pretrial confinement, and Major Hassan has been treated as a confinee since since November. He's a confinee at the Brooke Army Medical Center, and as some of your viewers may know, he's been recently moved to the Bell County Jail, where he remains in pretrial confinement. That's a unique status for a military offender because we don't have bond in the military. We have challenged that status, arguing that he's not a flight risk, that he presents no threat to anyone. But thus far, all of our efforts to have him removed from pretrial confinement have been unsuccessful. I fully expect he's going to remain in pretrial confinement through the duration of the remaining process. And the Army's indicated its willingness to keep him there no matter what the expense. By the time we finally get around to a formal trial, and we've got a lot of other wickets to go through, again, we could be looking at something a year from now, and his pretrial confinement costs are probably going to exceed $500,000. We're still awaiting several important steps that have to be completed before there can be a referral to a court-martial. There needs to be the Article 32 investigation. The preliminary steps for that have already been sort of scheduled. And there also has to be a sanity board conducted under the rules for court-martial. Originally, the Army wanted to have him examined in advance of the Article 32, but the defense successfully asked that be postponed until after the Article 32 for reasons that we can discuss. But all of these major procedures are still going to have to take place before we have a formal referral to any court and a formal final declaration by the General Court-Martial Convening Authority that this will be a death penalty case.
We've heard that it's going to be a death penalty case. Right. Now we're hearing...
Well, the Army just last night came out with another press release at Fort Hood trying to dispel reports in national media that this is already going to be a death penalty case. And they're trying to assure the readers that the Army has not jumped to any conclusions because they're well aware of the fact that we're still early in this process. But I think you'd have to be blind and an idiot to not know or see what's going on at Fort Hood. The circumstantial evidence that tells anybody familiar with the military justice system that this is going to be a death penalty case is abundant and it's clear. They've docketed, or they've already budgeted several $1 million to try the case. Contracts amounting to hundreds of thousands of dollars have already been let. Modifications are being made to a courthouse, to the hospital on post, to the evidence custodian building or evidence rooms over at Fort Hood. All of these are clear indicators that this trial is going to be handled as a death penalty case. They've brought in 2 prosecutors, both who have prior experience in military death penalty cases. Colonel Mulligan was on the Akbar case. They've also approved, as part of the defense case, a military defense lawyer to come in from Fort Bragg, where he just completed another death penalty case, to be part of our defense team. So, if you look at all of these examples and developments that I'm talking about, some of them in terms of personnel, others in terms of logistics, or more recently the big fight that's going on between the Pentagon and the Senate with respect to the release of information. Anybody familiar with military justice would tell you that it's pretty much a surefire thing that this case will be tried as a death penalty case.
How rare are these death penalty cases in the military?
Extremely rare. And because of that, they're generally fraught with a lot of problems. The reversal rate in those cases where the death penalty has been assessed is extremely high. I think I saw reports that range somewhere around 80%. And oftentimes those were reversals based on pure procedural deficiencies in the trial process.
Talk a little bit about your strategy.
Well, right now it's to try and get as much information about the case as we can. And in 36 years of military practice, I have never experienced so much stonewalling as exists in this case. Here we are 6 months after this tragic incident, and I'm still yet to be in receipt of the FBI reports associated with the case. I am still not in receipt of the emails that we've read about in national media that allegedly went on between the defendant and Al-Awlaki. I have not been in receipt of the classified or the restricted part of Secretary of the Army West's 45-day review at Fort Hood. In fact, the Senate, as I understand it, Senators Lieberman and Collins just received that several days ago. I've been asking for that since December. The Army recently told the investigating officer to consider the existence of aggravating factors in this case, which is a necessary predicate for a death penalty referral. And guess what? I'm still without a mitigation specialist. I still do not have direct access to the CID office where all of the files are located. They are being provided to me by way of weekly dumps of information, all of which is carefully bait stamped, another indicator as to where they're going. But information related to General Ham's inquiry about what went on at Walter Reed and Major Hassan Sapir's, that has not been furnished to us. The intelligence review that was directed by the Obama administration and conducted by John Brennan, the security advisor at the White House, was supposed to have been completed at the end of November. We still don't have that. So when you start looking at all of those elements, and those are issues that very clearly are going to be important to the defense because they go directly to the mental state of the defendant. One would have thought that these materials would have been turned over to us much earlier. Well, as I've told you, in many respects, they haven't been turned over to us at all. And so the words that Senator Collins and Lieberman used about stonewalling, foot dragging, and that, those are things that I've been saying for months, and I think clearly apply here.
When you talk about the mental state of the defendant,
Well, in any case, it's important. I mean, there's a presumption that people are competent. There's a presumption that people are sane. But if you go back and look at the history of this case, you will find that there were reports made very early on by professional mental health officials, some of them military, some of them civilian, that indicated that there were warning signs, signals that perhaps Major Hassan was, I think in the words of one report, psychotic. And when I first mentioned to folks that there would clearly be a mental responsibility issue in this case, that was poo-pooed by a lot of folks. And guess what? Shortly after I made that statement, it was the Army, the commander, his commander, who made the formal request that there be a sanity board examination in this case. So that's clear indication that not just the defense is concerned about this. The Army, and when I say the Army, I'm really talking about the prosecutors are concerned about it. There's no doubt in my mind that that request for a sanity board, while it may have been signed by a military commander, it was prepared by the prosecutors.
if it is determined that